Sign, and if you don't, I'll say it in front of the whole church. You don't deserve to be a mother. I'm Mia Reynolds. My biological mother, Diane, said that right beside the baptismal font while my daughter was still wrapped in a white baptism gown. In her hand was a black clipboard, 2 pages. One page was forcing me to sign that the $68,000 I paid to save the house was a gift. The other was a nursery pickup consent, so she could pick up my child anytime the church had activities. It was a private ceremony, only about 20 people. Not strangers, family and faces I see every Sunday. My mother leaned in, voice soft. Just sign it so it stays peaceful. I bent to read, and my finger stopped on a line near the bottom. Short, to keep the peace. Or am I handing the key to keep the peace? Or am I handing the key to someone who always knows the exact moment I'm least willing to make a scene? And I'm Stella. Before Stella keeps going, what state are you listening from? And what time is it where you are right now? Comment and tell Stella. If someone has ever used morality, like a rope to tie your hands, like subscribe and stay until the end, because in just a few minutes, you'll understand why Mia set that pen down and didn't say another word. Pastor Grant had just finished the ceremony. The wooden pews started creaking as people stood up and squeezed closer to take the family after the service photo. Ethan was right beside me, his hand resting lightly at my back like a latch. Marissa, our baby's godmother, had her phone up, smiling softly at a few people from the congregation. My mother came in late, walking in like she was the one everyone had been waiting for. She didn't hug the baby. She didn't look at the white gown. She looked straight at my hands, then set the black clipboard down on the wooden bench. The pen slid right into place. Don't embarrass your own child, my mother said again, her eyes flicking toward the phones pointed our way. Like a reminder that in this room, everyone was afraid of ruining the mood. I shifted my daughter to Ethan's arms so I'd have one hand free. The first page was acknowledgement of gift. One signature to turn $68,000 into an unconditional gift. The second page was the nursery pickup form. I flipped to the bottom. My finger paused on that little line. Just a few words, but the authorized wording made the back of my neck go cold. Because it meant no asking again, no checking again. Ethan simply shifted his body, lightly blocking the paper. He didn't say anything, just glanced over with a look that asked one thing. The baby stirred in his arms, her lips pressing together like she was about to cry. The pen sat there, neat in a way that felt wrong, like it was waiting for a hand to fall into a trap. I didn't reach for it. The clipboard was being squeezed tight. My mother stopped pretending. This wasn't help. She wanted the key in the one place you hate making a scene. I looked up, not to argue, just to stand straight. My mother stayed right there, gripping the clipboard, patient in a way that makes you feel like you can't breathe. Around us, a few people in the congregation had already started talking about the family photo, about coffee in the fellowship hall. A chair scraped softly, a bakery bag crinkled. Everything trying to slide back into normal, like the thread a second ago had just slipped out by accident. Kara stood behind my mother in a bright dress, face calm. All my life, Kara has been the one everyone wrapped up first and explained later, and I've always handled things myself. Picked up shifts, paid my own tuition, cleaned the kitchen, swallowed my words whenever someone said, "Don't make it a big deal." In that house, being the understanding one was my role. My finger rubbed along the cold edge of the paper, and the words, "good at enduring," from when I was 17, suddenly rang in my ears like silverware clinking against the sink. What had my throat tight right then wasn't my mother's voice. It was this little church, these faces I see every Sunday, these hands that still shake mine. All she had to do was paint me as the bad daughter in front of them. And next week when I walked in, their eyes would change, while their smiles stayed polite. Ethan touched my elbow, just enough to steady me. "The more you swallow, the more she pushes," he said. Then he shifted, his body blocking the paper. The price of always giving in is that family learns to take more. If you've ever tasted that, the more you swallow, the more you lose feeling too. Hit like once, like we're sitting at the same table, understanding each other. I looked at Marissa, my child's godmother. She didn't step in or fight for the spotlight. She just met my eyes, steady, like a handrail on a slick floor. It kept my breathing from tipping into panic. My mother leaned in again, still soft. "Just sign it. Don't make everyone uncomfortable." Same old move, using the crowd like a rope, using for the child like a lock. The 2 pages were stacked and placed neatly back on the wooden bench, no tearing, no throwing. The pen was pushed a little farther away, just enough for anyone to understand it wasn't for me. I'm not signing here, my voice dropped low, only for my mother to hear. Signing for peace today would mean signing again next time. And my child would grow up in a place where whoever had the title had the power. The ceremony could stay calm, but after this, the game wouldn't be about words anymore. It would be about boundaries and paperwork. My mother froze for a few seconds, then pulled the clipboard tight against her chest like something had been snatched from her. Kara smirked behind her and stepped back like she didn't even need to lift a finger. Pastor Grant cleared his throat and invited everyone to head into the fellowship hall for coffee. The room filled up with chatter again. Phones came back up. The after-service photo still happened, except my mother stood off to the side, keeping a polite smile while her eyes stayed cold. On the way home, Ethan drove slowly. The baby slept in her car seat and back, the white gown spread across her belly like a clean sheet of paper. Ethan asked one short question. "You okay?" I nodded, just to keep moving. 2 years earlier, it was my mother calling in that same voice. "The house is about to be foreclosed, Mia. I need you." I was on shift at the clinic then, still in my scrubs. She said it was a big amount, and if it didn't come in time, the bank would start the paperwork. Kara was going through a hard time, couldn't contribute. Then my mother went quiet, like the rest automatically belonged to me. It wasn't one transfer, it was many. I sat at the kitchen table, opened my banking app, and sent it in chunks. A few thousand, then 10,000, then another amount when she texted, "Need it today." Altogether, it was $68,000. Savings, overtime, the money I thought I was building a future with. No one held my hand. There was only "I need you," and the send button felt like it pressed itself. Has anyone ever sacrificed everything for family, only to get back the kind of indifference that treats it like your duty? If you're carrying a weight you don't know who to tell, leave a single period or a heart emoji in the comments so we can warm each other a little. That day, she hugged me on the porch and said, "I'll pay you back. I won't let you lose." No paperwork, no receipt, just a promise. And I believed her. A few months later, Kara moved in like the house belonged to her. And when I mentioned being repaid, my mother said, "You have your own family now. Don't start counting." It sounded like advice. It was an order. What made my throat tighten wasn't the money. It was how the story changed color. One time after service, standing near the snack table, I heard my mother telling a woman in the congregation, "I handled it all myself. God was good, and we got through it." Her voice was soft and pretty, like a testimony. She told it like that money fell out of the sky, like I had never existed. That night I texted, "When are you going to pay back what I helped with?" The reply came fast. "Who does that to family?" It sounded polite, but it was a lock on my mouth, a lock on the number. Some promises sound like family, until you're being pressured to sign away the sacrifice you made. If you were in that spot, would you stay quiet to keep the peace? Or would you stand up? The next Sunday, I still carried my baby into church. Missing 1 week would have become proof that something was wrong with me. Service. Pastor Grant invited everyone into the fellowship hall for coffee and photos. The snacks were set out. People kept their voices soft to keep the morning pleasant. Pastor looked toward our family. "Would anyone like to say a few words of thanks before we take pictures?" My mother stood up immediately. No microphone. Her voice was just loud enough for the room, just gentle enough that no one dared interrupt. "Mia's been different lately," she said, eyes locked on me. "She doesn't think about family the way she used to." No one reacted. A few people poured coffee. Someone pretended to straighten a tray. The room stayed polite, but it tightened like a string. My mother walked to the table, set the clipboard beside the donut tray, and slid out the 2 pages and the pen. She didn't shove them into my hand. She put them right in the middle, where anyone who wanted to look could. "You're really trying to smear me in a place like this," she said, still forcing her voice low. Then she tapped the nursery form. "I just want to pick up my grandbaby when you're busy," she said. "I'm her grandmother. Sign it so I don't look useless." The words sounded like help, but the way she set the pen down was a command. Kara stood behind her with her arms crossed, face calm. Ethan leaned slightly to block the papers from a few people nearby, but my mother kept going. She turned to Pastor Grant, polite as ever. "Pastor, please hear me on this. I'm saying it clearly so no one can twist it later." She never said witness, but that's what she wanted. An ethical stamp, right here. Pastor paused. His eyes passed over me, then landed on the table, the look of a man who only wants the morning to stay intact. The 2 pages sat there like a clean trap. The papers were stacked and placed neatly again, The pen was nudged aside. "I'm not signing here," I said, short and quiet, "just for my mother." My mother pressed her lips together, like she was about to push it further. Ethan leaned close and whispered, "Marissa is here because you asked her to be, not to start a war, so you don't have to stand alone." Right then, Marissa took one step forward and stood beside me without saying a word. Just a position, but enough for my mother to understand. This table wasn't going to be the place she dropped a pen and made me bow. My mother stayed by the table like if she held her ground long enough, the whole room would tilt her way. Kara wore that "she's right" face. A few people stared down into their coffee so they didn't have to look at the papers. Pastor Grant drew a breath, trying to keep the morning from breaking. For 1 second, my hand wanted to move. Not because she convinced me, because I was tired. Tired of being the center of the wrong kind of attention in the one place my baby was supposed to be blessed. Then my eyes hit the white baptism gown, and my hand pulled back. "Pastor," I said, just loud enough. "Give me 1 minute. I'm not accusing anyone. I'm just setting a boundary." Pastor nodded. "Mia, go ahead." Ethan held the baby close to his chest. I stayed right by my chair. "Anything on paper about my child? I'm not signing it here." My voice dropped, short and firm. My mother tried to cut in, but Pastor lifted a hand, small but clear. "Diane, let Mia finish." Marissa handed me a thin envelope. I pulled out the one page I needed, a printout of the transfers, a few lines circled, the amount and the dates. $68,000, I said, looking straight at my mother. "That's what I sent to save the house." The next page was an old text from her, 2 lines. "I need it fast to meet the deadline." And, "I'll pay you back. I won't let you lose." I didn't read a speech. I just set my finger on that sentence and put the paper down. The room went quieter, not angry quiet, the kind of quiet where pretending gets harder. I held my daughter's white baptism gown in my hands, soft fabric, small and clean, and said one short line, "This is white. My baby is white." But these 2 papers aren't. There are people who spend their whole lives swallowing it to keep the house peaceful. Send this video to them, okay? Don't say anything, just let it be a tap on the shoulder so they know they're not alone. Marissa took half a step forward, calm. "Mia, we're leaving. No one is forcing anyone to sign anything here. We'll handle the rest later." The papers were stacked and set neatly on the table again. The pen was pushed aside. "If you need anything, send it through an attorney," I said quietly, "only for my mother. I'm not signing under pressure." For the first time that morning, my mother didn't have the next line ready. My mother lowered her voice but made sure people could still hear. "You ruined the morning, in church." "You brought the papers here," I said evenly and stopped. Pastor Grant stepped in, still gentle but firmer now. "Today is for the baby. Please stop with any paperwork. Everyone, go enjoy coffee on the other side." He didn't take sides. He just blocked the table, like stopping a crack from spreading through the whole room. Ethan pulled the chair in and gathered the baby's things. Marissa didn't say a word. She just snapped quick photos of both pages, the timestamp clear on the screen, then one close-up of the line that read, "Nursery pickup consent," so no one could claim this never happened. I picked up my baby and nodded at Pastor in thanks. No waiting for photos, no donut. I walked out in silence. My heels clicked hard on the tile. Behind me, a few whispers stopped mid-sentence. The parking lot was cold. Kara was already there, planted right in the path out. "You're making this a big deal over money," she said, like she was on the side of right. "You're so greedy you made a scene in church." No arguing. I asked one question, low and sharp. "So, have you paid me back a single dollar?" Kara froze. Ethan opened the car door. The baby stirred, then fell right back asleep. I slid into the passenger seat, still steadying the car seat. Marissa sat behind me and finally said what she'd held back in church. "I do civil law. If Diane keeps trying to use paperwork to corner you, I can send a certified letter, block her from nursery pickup and any church activities." "Do it," I said. Not because I wanted a fight, because this is my child. Back home, the first thing I did was open my laptop. I emailed the church office and CC'd Pastor Grant. The updated nursery pickup list. Only me, Ethan, and the 2 godparents. No long explanation, just names. My phone buzzed. A message from Marissa came not long after, short and ice cold. "Mia, I reviewed the file, and it looks like your name shows up on a HELOC. If you didn't sign it, this is a big deal." I looked at the screen, then at my baby sleeping. My heart thumped once, hard. Not because I was scared of my mom, because I was scared of what she'd been willing to do before I even knew. Marissa's message froze me in the middle of the kitchen. The baby was still asleep in the carrier, and Ethan was pouring water like he was trying to keep everything quiet. HELOC was a cold word, not an emotional thing, a paperwork thing. Marissa called immediately. "Mia, I just pulled a summary tied to your mom's house," she said straight to the point. "There's a home equity line of credit, and in the consent section, your name shows up as a co-borrower." She paused. "The date on the record is when you were pregnant." Ethan set his glass down on the table. He didn't curse. He didn't raise his voice. He just asked steady, "Is there a specific date? Which bank? Who sent the confirmation email? Is there a signature sample?" His voice sounded exactly like it does when he's checking a work contract, cold and clear. Marissa sent the file. I opened it and scrolled to the exact line with my name. The text looked clean, like everything was perfectly legitimate. That legitimate feeling was what made my throat tighten. A memory flashed, short and sharp. Late in my pregnancy, my mom stopped by with a stack of papers and said, like it was nothing, "Let me borrow your ID and a few documents. I'm filling out a bank/insurance form. The print is too small." My feet were swollen then, and my mind was stuck on appointment schedules and a crib we still hadn't put together. I handed them over. No questions. No reading. I just wanted it done. Now that "just get it done" was sitting right there on the screen. What do you think Diane will do when she's backed into a corner at the bank? Stella's about to show you her real face right now. I clenched my baby's baptism gown in my hand until the white fabric wrinkled. I leaned back against the kitchen cabinet, my chest running out of air, but my other hand was already grabbing my phone. I had to call Marissa right now. Ethan sat down beside me without a word and just rested a hand on my shoulder. Marissa kept her voice calm. "I recommend 2 tracks. 1, a civil claim to recover $68,000, based on the money trail and the texts where she promised to pay you back. 2, schedule a bank appointment to verify the HELOC signature. No noise. We need a timeline." Ethan turned to me. "What day did your mom come by to borrow those papers? Did anyone see her?" "Yes," I said. "That day, Mrs. Keller stopped by with baked goods, and she was standing there talking to my mom." Marissa gave a small nod. "That's enough. Don't send anything heated. Don't post online. Let the paperwork speak." I looked at my baby sleeping peacefully. The scariest part is realizing what someone was willing to do, right when you were busy becoming a mother. When a mother uses her title to pressure her daughter into signing, what happens if that daughter doesn't argue? She just takes everything to the one place where truth is measured in documents. The next morning, Marissa sent a draft certified letter. Clean and direct. My mother had to stop contacting the church, the nursery, or anyone connected to picking up my child. From now on, all communication went through Marissa's office. I read it once and signed right away. Ethan printed it and clipped it together. Marissa sent it out by certified mail that afternoon. That same afternoon, the claim to recover $68,000 was opened. No long story, bank transfer statements, my mom's texts asking to save the house, her promise that she'd pay me back, and a summary of damages. A clean packet, solid enough to stand up if anyone tried to turn it into family business. My part had to stay clean, too. I sent Pastor Grant a short email, only asking him to confirm one thing if it was ever needed. That there had been an incident where I was pressured to sign papers in the fellowship hall after the baptism, and that he asked it to stop to keep the day focused on the baby. No venting, no dragging him into sides. Just one accurate event. That night, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Mom called. I didn't answer. She texted, "MIA, don't do this." I stayed quiet. 10 minutes later, the voicemail changed tone. "That baby needs her grandmother." Then it got sharp. "Is Ethan putting you up to this?" The way she pushed the blame onto my husband made my throat go dry. I sent one message back. One line. "Everything through the attorney." In a small church, news travels fast at coffee hour. But this time, it was harder to twist. The number was there. The paper was there. Someone I knew messaged Marissa. "Is it really 68,000? Just that question told me the story wasn't in the hands of the loudest person anymore. Late afternoon, I stopped by Walgreens to pick up the printed baptism photo. Back home, I opened the envelope, pulled out one picture, and stuck it right on the refrigerator, dead center at eye level. Not to show off. To remember, this house has an owner and my child has a mother. Right after that, an email from the bank came in. The appointment to verify the signature tied to the HELOC had been confirmed. They asked me to bring my ID and a signature sample. I read it, set my phone down on the table, and felt the last space for keeping the peace disappear. From here on out, everything would be measured on paper. The bank appointment was set for Tuesday morning. Ethan took a half day off and drove me. Marissa met us in the parking lot with a thin folder in her hand. She didn't look like we were heading to court, just like someone showing up to handle something that needed handling. Inside, the counters were bright white, and the place smelled like paper and cold air. I handed over my ID and signed in at the front desk. The receptionist checked the schedule and nodded. Signature verification appointment. It sounded ordinary, but my heart beat like I was walking into an exam I never signed up for. We had just sat down in the waiting area when my mother appeared in the lobby. Diane's hair was neatly done, her purse tucked tight at her side, walking in like she was used to people stepping aside. When she saw me, she stopped, then walked straight over. "Are you trying to kill me?" she hissed, pulling me toward the ATM area. There was no church here, no coffee hour, no audience for her to play the victim. Just glass and security cameras. "You tried to make me sign in church," I said. "I'm just putting everything where it belongs." My voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. She started to speak again, but then the employee called my name. I went back to the appointment desk. Ethan sat close, his hand steady on his knee like an anchor. Marissa opened her folder and pulled out exactly 3 things. A 1-page timeline, proof I couldn't have been present on the date the record showed, signed, and a recent signature sample from my paperwork. She slid it toward the employee, calm and unemotional. "We're requesting signature verification on the HELOC file." The bank employee didn't ask who was right or wrong. She just nodded, pulled the screen closer, and took a stack of papers from the file tray. My life suddenly became a handful of pages. Thick, thin, clipped, labeled. The slow moment was strange. The employee placed the signature page in front of me, then placed my signature sample beside it. Her finger traced the strokes line by line. A page turned with a soft shfaff, louder than the air conditioner. I squeezed Ethan's hand under the table, not because I was afraid of my mom, but because for the first time I didn't have to talk. My mother stood a few steps away. She forced her posture straight, but her eyes started darting like she was hunting for an exit. The employee spoke evenly. "If the signatures don't match, the file will be flagged and forwarded to the review department." Then she looked back down and kept turning pages. My mom went pale. In here, she didn't have morality to cling to. Only a signature. Leaned close and whispered. Like he was locking a door. "Now they can't force you to sign anything else." After the appointment, nothing exploded. It just slid onto rails. The HELOC file went into review, and from that point on, my mother didn't have shortcuts left to bend the story. Marissa handled the rest through paperwork. A repayment plan agreement with a clear commitment. My mother had to stop interfering with anything tied to church, the nursery, or picking up my child. No more help that comes with a key. No more for the baby as a way to force a signature. When she signed, I wasn't there. I didn't want to be there. Marissa called and said one sentence. "It's done." I exhaled like a rope had finally loosened after years. No gloating, just lightness, like living without asking permission for peace. But justice has a price. Family took sides. Kara cut contact. And that little church, the place I once thought I'd raise my child, wasn't where I wanted to bring her anymore. I switched communities quietly, not out of spite, for peace. One night, cleaning up after the baptism, I opened the small box holding the ceremony candle. The wick was slightly charred. Looking at it, one thing landed clean. Sacred doesn't mean safe. Safety is boundaries, and I have to be the one holding them. I don't need to turn my mother into a villain to make this story work. I only need to name what happened. Forced signatures, smear tactics, morality used like a rope. That's it. The rest was my choice, to stop the cycle. My daughter will still know who her grandmother is, but in a safe way, at the right time, with the right limits. I'm not chasing revenge. I just want my child to grow up without learning that silence is the price of peace. What Mia went through isn't just a story, it's a lesson about boundaries Stella wants to hand you. Softly, but honestly. Kindness doesn't come with helplessness. And to be clear, the story in this video is fictional, inspired by real-life situations and human experiences. The content was supported by AI and edited by a human to offer reflection and educational value. This video does not encourage you to copy the actions in the story. Every real-life situation requires safety and legal judgment that fits your circumstances. If Stella can leave you one small gift, it's this. Sometimes you don't have to speak louder. You just have to stand in the right place and let the evidence speak. And I'm Stella. Thank you for staying until the end. If Mia's story reminded you of a moment you had to stay quiet just to keep the peace, leave a comment. What state are you listening from? And what time is it where you are right now? I read every comment. If you think this video could help someone set boundaries without feeling guilty, share it with them. And if you want more stories where justice comes in a very real, very ordinary way, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Thank you for listening and for choosing to be kind to yourself.